Tonight on Reporting Scotland, families of 4 men who took their own lives demand a public inquiry into mental health services on Tayside. We look at how easy it is to buy the Class A drug cocaine on the streets of Scotland's biggest city. The head of ScotRail admits that improvement plans on 2 of Scotland's busiest routes are facing delays. Holyrood will demand further concessions from the UK government in the row over devolved powers returning from the EU after Brexit. And concerns that Andy Murray may not be fit to play at Wimbledon following hip surgery. Good evening. The families of 4 Tayside men who took their own lives went to Holyrood today to demand a public inquiry into mental health services in their region. The Health Secretary, Shona Robson, told them that the independent investigation already announced by NHS Tayside would be expanded to find the answers they're seeking. From Parliament, here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell.
This is Lee Welsh from Dundee. He struggled with mental health problems for almost a decade. Last summer, he took his own life. He was 27. In Lee's memory, his parents have been campaigning for better mental health services ever since his death. And they are by no means the only parents from Tayside demanding change.
How would you feel if it was your son, your daughter, your mother? My granddaughter is now going to grow up without a dad because they failed.
Mandy McLaren believes the NHS could have saved her son, Dale Thompson. She was with him when he sought treatment at Dundee's Carsview Centre in 2015. They did not admit him.
And I did say, if anything happens to my son here, I'm holding you responsible because he's needing help. And we left. I got outside beside my son. And he says, even needing, I think I'm worth saving, Mum. And we went home.
3 days later, Dale was dead. He was 28. His mum and twin brother found his body.
As he said, it was like being in a black hole that he couldn't escape from. And he wasn't getting help.
What impact did Dale's death have on you and the family?
It's destroyed us.
Suicide is a major public health concern, particularly among young adults. 23% said they'd considered taking their own lives in a new survey led by Glasgow University. More than 11% said they'd actually attempted suicide. That's 1 in 9 people between the ages of 18 and 34 from a very large sample. Mandy McLaren, with relatives of 4 Tayside men who took their own lives, came to Holyrood today to call for a public inquiry. Labour pressed their case.
It needs to be visibly independent. It needs to be visibly inclusive. It needs to be visibly open and transparent.
The Health Secretary said the inquiry already announced by NHS Tayside should do that job.
We must use this independent inquiry to first of all seek answers to the very pertinent and serious questions that many families have, but importantly that the changes that come out of this inquiry will make NHS Tayside's mental health services some of the best, not just in Scotland, but beyond these shores.
Families who've lost loved ones to suicide remain sceptical, but they are willing to give the promised inquiry a chance. Ben Campbell, Reporting Scotland.
Tonight we're looking at claims about the ease with which drug users in Scotland can buy cocaine. We've been speaking to one former addict about his experience. It comes as a global survey is published into the drug-taking habits of people around the world. Aileen Clark reports.
It gets a grip of you and there's nothing you can do about it.
Cocaine, the so-called party drug, but for this man, who we will call Jamie, the party went flat when cocaine stopped being part of a weekend social life and started being a daily need.
I was taking it every night, and topped up at the weekends with a lot more. because basically I had my wages at the end of the week, so you tend to buy a lot more.
The annual report by the Global Drugs Survey highlights that speed cocaine can be sourced by those who want it. More than a third of those who responded in Scotland claim they could get a delivery of it quicker than a pizza, and that's very slightly higher than the number of those reporting such delivery times in England. None of this comes as news to Jamie, who this time last year was a regular customer.
Very easy. It was a phone call, possibly before we went out or when we were in maybe a pub or a club. We'd all put money together and phone up a certain person and it would deliver right to the pub. No problem at all. You could get it within half an hour, and if you couldn't get it off of one, you would just phone another and get it just as quick.
The report also suggests that when Scots take cocaine, they're taking more than a gram, while in England and elsewhere in the world, it tends to be less than a gram. Drugs workers say there are a number of explanations for that.
And even different parts of Scotland will have quite fluctuating levels of purity, which means that people often compensate for this and will use more of cocaine as a result of that.
Jamie has his life back on track now. He's been clean for almost a year.
It's phenomenal. It's just feeling healthy, feeling great, having my family back, working an honest life, and looking forward to what's ahead of me.
And Aileen Clark's with me now. Aileen, can you put these claims into some kind of context for us?
Well, Sally, it's worth bearing in mind that the Global Drug Survey is put together by taking information that comes from anonymous web surveys of recreational drug users. Now, the academics involved in pulling all that together, they themselves say that this should not be taken to determine, if you like, how common drug use is in any population. That's not actually what it's for. I mean, what they use this for is to really help develop harm reduction strategies, for example, for drug users. So apart from what users are telling them about how much cocaine they're using at a time, the survey really doesn't take us much further into how many people in Scotland, for example, are using cocaine. However, the Scottish Drugs Forum, who you heard there in my report, they're saying it's well known that Scots are, pretty high up there when it comes to the highest consumers of cocaine, often combining it with alcohol. And worth a mention from this report today, more than 16% of Scots respondents to this survey said they used the dark net to buy drugs. Now, usually when we hear about the dark web, it's in relation to something like child pornography or child abuse. And of course, that is a challenge for the police. Police Scotland said tonight that they keep across these trends and they adapt how they crack down on drug dealers to reflect that.
Aileen, thanks very much for that. Concern is growing over the whereabouts of Scott Hutchison, the lead singer of the Scottish indie band Frightened Rabbit. Police Scotland issued an urgent appeal after he was reported missing by his family. Mr Hutchison hasn't been seen since leaving the Dakota Hotel in South Queensferry around 1 o'clock this morning. The 36-year-old's bandmates described him as in a fragile state. He was last seen wearing a dark baseball cap, a navy hooded jacket, grey or khaki trousers and white trainers. The boss of ScotRail has said that efforts to speed up journey times on two of Scotland's busiest routes are facing delays. Alex Hines told MSPs that new rail services through the Central Belt and from Aberdeen to Edinburgh are behind schedule. Here's our transport correspondent David Henderson.
Every day, thousands of people let the train take the strain as they travel around Scotland. Most passengers want shorter journey times, and so does ScotRail. So this year, almost £1 billion is being spent to improve the rail network.
Ongoing work to improve Queen Street Station here in Glasgow is the final piece of the jigsaw, designed to pave the way for faster journey times. In future, when new trains are travelling between Glasgow and Edinburgh, passengers should be able to make it from one city to the other in just 42 minutes.
To make it happen, diesel trains which operate through the Central Belt are being replaced with a greener, faster alternative. They promise to cut those journey times by 10 minutes. But there's a delay. Most of the new electric trains aren't ready, so the timetable has slipped.
We'd like to deliver 42 minutes journeys on the brand new electric trains for this December. It won't be every service at 42 minutes for this December. That comes the following year, but that's our aspiration. Clearly, that's dependent upon having the rolling stock from Hitachi to deliver.
So why the delay? Well, it's partly down to the windows on these trains. Some drivers complain they can't see out properly, and the rail unions want them redesigned. But some blame ScotRail.
I think ScotRail have completely failed to explain exactly why we're seeing these delays taking so long for these trains. These are crucial routes when it comes to Scotland's economy, and I don't think the service is being delivered the way the passengers want to see that being delivered.
The Aberdeen to Edinburgh service also faces delayed improvements. Intercity trains were scheduled to start running this month. Now ScotRail says they won't be on track until July. The reason, it seems, is that work to refurbish the trains, which are older but roomier 125s, had been a challenge. David Henderson reporting Scotland.
The Lord Advocate has ordered an independent review into the way the police investigated the death of a young Caithness man over 2 decades ago. Kevin MacLeod was found dead in Wick Harbour in 1997. His family believed he was murdered, but the police maintained it was accidental. Jackie O'Brien reports.
Kevin MacLeod's unexplained death in Wick Harbour has haunted his family as well as the police, who have been criticised over their handling of the investigation. Now, 20 years on, and following a recent police apology, the 24-year-old's relatives have been informed that Scotland's Lord Advocate has instructed a thorough review of the case.
This is certainly the biggest development in the past 21 years. It says to me that the Lord Advocate himself has seen something untoward or sinister in this case, and he wants to get to the bottom of it, as does the family.
The MacLeod family have always maintained Kevin was murdered and have accused the authorities of a cover-up. They've welcomed the Lord Advocate's fresh focus on why police at the time ignored a Crown Office instruction to mount a murder investigation.
They did receive this instruction, but they had failed to act on this instruction, and we need to find out why. Not only that, but why they destroyed Kevin's clothing. Why did the authorities, who all clearly knew about this failure by the police, why did they not act or address this matter or inform the family? The family has been through sheer hell.
The intervention comes amid ongoing police inquiries into the case. It's emerged that 15 potential witnesses are to be interviewed by officers as this enduring Far North mystery is given new momentum. Jackie O'Brien reporting Scotland, Inverness.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 19 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. Labour MSPs push for a public inquiry into mental health services at NHS Tayside following a high rate of suicides. And still to come, the race for second place in the Scottish Premiership moves towards a dramatic conclusion. MSPs are set to demand further concessions from the UK government in the row over devolved powers returning from the EU after Brexit. BBC Scotland has learned that an influential Holyrood committee will back Scottish ministers in their stance, despite pressure from the Conservatives. This emerged as Scotland celebrated Europe Day, the last before Brexit. Here's our political editor, Brian Taylor.
And next, we go to Germany.
Europe Day, Glasgow style. Britain may be saying goodbye to the European Union, but EU nations are still saying hello in Scotland.
Bonjour.
Ahoy.
Hola. Sveiciens no Latvijas.
Let's remember, most people in Scotland voted to remain in the EU.
It's better to be part of the bigger picture than to be more isolated.
We've had to go, aye.
But some are ready to leave.
I'm happy to leave the EU, but still remain part of Europe.
Touring the stalls, the External Affairs Minister Fiona Hislop insists that Scotland will continue to build links with European partners even after Brexit. But how about those powers returning from the European Union? Westminster wants to keep control of key devolved issues like farming until cross-border rules are agreed throughout the UK. That's caused a huge row, but Conservatives say it's bogus. They accuse the SNP of rejecting compromise to promote independence.
I think increasingly it's unfortunate, Brian, that the SNP seem to be wanting to use their, increasingly belligerent opposition to Brexit as an excuse for beginning to reheat arguments about a second independence referendum, which Scotland plainly doesn't want. What Scotland does want is for both of its governments, the Scottish government here and the United Kingdom government in London, to work together to deliver the best possible Brexit for the UK economy as a whole, including Scotland.
Scotland's Brexit minister meets a care organisation in Edinburgh who are worried.
Thank you very much for coming.
17% of their staff come from EU countries. On the powers row, Mike Russell insists he is simply standing up for Scottish interests.
What the UK government are trying to do is to roll back devolution. Devolution that people of Scotland supported and which served Scotland well, and has served Scotland well when taken forward by all the parties.
Is there a possibility, finally, of a deal in these last few days?
There is always a possibility of an agreement. I look for that agreement, but we are also preparing to make sure that Scotland does not face a legislative cliff edge.
MSP Stuart McMillan marks Europe Day with Beethoven on the pipes. But will Scotland's European links post-Brexit continue to inspire an ode to joy or a lingering lament?
And Brian Taylor joins me now from Holyrood. Brian, that row over powers comes to a head next week, so what do you expect to happen?
It does. There'll be a third reading in the Lords. There's been a committee here in Holyrood, the Finance and Constitution Committee, looking at this, and they were considering their verdict today. They'll publish that later. My understanding is that the Greens and, crucially, Labour voted with the SNP to argue, as a majority, that the current deal on the table from the UK government simply isn't good enough, still isn't good enough. That's contrary to the view of the Conservatives on the committee. Now, that opinion will influence the debate next week. I believe that Scottish ministers will table a consent motion, but it will only be partial consent to that EU withdrawal bill. They will withhold support on that contested area of those devolved powers. I don't think the UK government will be remotely content with that. They want full consent, but that is being currently withheld, I believe, which leaves a couple of options. Either there is a last-minute deal, which frankly neither side is now predicting, or Westminster legislates for EU withdrawal without full Holyrood consent. And that's another controversy altogether.
Brian, thank you. The funeral of the former House of Commons Speaker Michael Martin took place earlier today in Glasgow. The former Labour MP, who was Speaker for 9 years until 2009, died at the end of April after a short illness. He was 72. Senior figures from the Labour Party were in attendance at the Mass at St Aloysius Church. The First Minister says Glasgow would be the perfect place for Channel 4's new headquarters. The broadcaster is searching for a base outside London, with Liverpool, Cardiff, Manchester and Birmingham also potentially in contention. Nicola Sturgeon will tell a conference in the city that the unique character of Glasgow would be a great fit for Channel 4. Closing speeches have been heard in the trial of a man accused of shooting dead the driver of a car as he waited at traffic lights. 26-year-old Ewan Johnson died following a catastrophic head wound after he was shot in the head. 33-year-old David Scott denies murdering him. The trial at the High Court in Glasgow continues. One of the world's leading hip experts says Andy Murray can expect bumps on the road to recovery, but does have a strong chance of returning to the top of his game. This despite fears this evening that Murray may not be fit to play Wimbledon this summer after suffering setbacks following his hip surgery in January. Caroline Itzan reports.
The biggest conference of sports surgeons in the world. Over 3,000 gathered in Glasgow. On many a lip, that's Andy Murray hip.
All those muscles and nerves that are pierced through or are moved around to get into the joint need to recuperate, and that can take up to 6 months.
One of the world's leading hip experts told me he's cautiously optimistic, despite revelations today that Andy Murray's recovery from surgery isn't going to plan.
I'd like to say and hope to say that everybody is linear, but with hip arthroscopy, it's usually an undulating course of improvement, where you gradually over time get there, but there are always muscle irritations, inflammatory bouts that can sometimes make the course a little bit wavy, so to speak. But the reality is, at the end of the day, once you've finished your treatment plan and your therapy, the outcomes are quite good as far as return to sport.
Murray always knew January's surgery was a risk, with the road to recovery likely to be a bumpy one. He hasn't played since Wimbledon 10 months ago and had hoped to return for next month's grass court season, but that's now looking increasingly unlikely.
Murray's first few weeks back on the training court appear to have gone very well, but he has since hit a bump in the road, and my understanding is that for at least the last couple of weeks he's barely been on court, if at all, and also pulled out of 2 corporate appearances. Possible plans to play indoors in Loughborough later this month have been all but shelved, which leaves the grass court season. He's due to play in the Netherlands in 5 weeks, at Queen's Club in 6 weeks. Both appearances must now be in some doubt, and Wimbledon is less than 8 weeks away.
The papers don't make for good reading if you're an Andy Murray fan, or if you were hoping to see him at Wimbledon. The consensus amongst the top tennis writers is that the champion in 2013 and 2016 won't make it to the All England club this summer. There are more world-renowned sports medicine experts, doctors and surgeons in here than you could shake a stick at. Their knowledge is huge, but one question is beyond even their ken. When will Andy Murray return to tennis, and at what level? Kerry Nidsan reporting Scotland at the SECC in Glasgow.
14-time major winner Tiger Woods will play at the Open Championship at Carnoustie in July. Woods, a 3-time winner of the Claret Jug, made his competitive return to golf in December after 16 months out following multiple back operations. His 2 previous appearances at the Scottish course saw him finish 7th in 1999 and 12th in 2007. The football season's reaching its climax. After tonight, there will just be 1 round of matches left in the Premiership season. The big match tonight is at Tynecastle, and that's where our senior football reporter Chris McLaughlin is.
Yes, a huge game here in Gorgie this evening. These fixtures are always big anyway, but a fascinating twist, of course, could happen this evening in that fight for second place. Hibs helped somewhat by events at Pittodrie last night, as David Curry reports.
1 point between Aberdeen and Rangers before last night's match.
Kenny McLean, perfect. There's Morelos, sends it in. McKenna sends it high. Danger here for Aberdeen. McCrory! What a pace!
1 point between them after it. So we are guaranteed a grandstand finish in the race for second place. A closing day win for the Dons seals it for them, but they're away to champion Celtic.
So it's still an opportunity for us, and like tonight, where we hadn't laid a glove on Rangers all season, we got something and played well, we're going to have to probably do that against Celtic. But it's fascinating.
The league table reveals other permutations. If Hibs beat Hearts tonight and Aberdeen don't win on Sunday, whoever wins between Rangers and Hibs at Easter Road will finish runners-up, with a draw being good enough for Rangers. At the other end of the table, the scramble for survival is equally cutthroat. Partick Thistle, who were beaten by Motherwell, or Ross County, who lost to Dundee, will finish bottom and be relegated. County are 2 points adrift at the foot of the table, so even a win on Saturday might not be enough.
We're relying on a group of professionals, we're relying on a group of guys that take pride in what they do, and for us, we've got to go and try and win the game again on Saturday. There's no secret in that.
So this County fan and his drum are championship bound, unless his team beats St Johnstone and Thistle lose to Dundee. Mind you, stranger things have happened in Scottish football.
Yes, it's going down to the wire in the fight to avoid relegation. Tonight here though, it's all about second spot. And joining me to chew over the match is the former Hearts manager, Robbie Neilson. Robbie, everything tonight points towards a Hibs win, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an important game for both teams. You know, obviously Hibs have got the opportunity to get close to that second spot to set it up for Sunday's games, but also Hearts will get the opportunity to get bragging rights for the close season, which is massive. You know, they'll want to send off their fans for the summer in good mood. So I think it's going to be a great game tonight.
Yeah, it's just been far too long since Hearts had a victory over Hibs, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a difficult period, but I think tonight they've got a great opportunity. You know, the pitch is looking great, different from the game against Celtic earlier in the week, so I do think it's a good chance for Hearts.
Yeah, what type of game are you expecting here tonight?
I think it'll be a physical game.
Yeah.
I think there'll be some good football in there as well. It'll be interesting to see what kind of style both teams play. You know, both of them have played 3-5-2 at times, both of them 3-4-3, 4 at the back as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see what Neil and Craig do. But both will be going for the victory because they both need it.
OK, Robbie, thank you very much indeed for now. As ever, Sports Sound on BBC Radio Scotland has all of the action. Also highlights a special sports scene programme on BBC One this evening at 11:45.
Chris McLaughlin there. Well, now time for the weather outlook. Christopher's here, standing in front of a rather dreich picture of Stirling. What's the forecast?
Isn't it better tomorrow, Sally? Thank you very much indeed. Hello there, good evening. And, you know, no matter the weather, our weather watch is always keen to go out and take pictures. Thank you very much indeed for that one, Graham. And you can see the wet weather we've had today on the radar moving its way eastwards. So still a few hours of wet weather to come, but it's on its way out. There it is on the chart. Off it goes out to the North Sea to leave most places dry overnight, some clear spells. Temperatures in towns and cities no lower than around 5 to 7 Celsius. Brisk wind, though, around the west coast. Tomorrow, and a brief ridge of high pressure, this lump in the isobars there, meaning predominantly dry conditions. But take a look at the high-resolution model and you'll see a few specks on it. Those are showers, some hail in the heaviest ones, the odd rumble of thunder, but out with them some sunshine. And most of those showers across parts of the Highlands and Islands, but a few drifting further east. If you catch one through the central lowlands in the south, you'll probably be unlucky, really. And by afternoon, that high pressure building, killing a lot of them off. So actually reasonably dry through the afternoon with some decent spells of sunshine. Temperatures 13 or 14 Celsius. Winds generally light to moderate from the southwest. Brisk at times, though, through the Minches. Perhaps there's still a few showers holding on across parts of Aberdeenshire, Murray, up towards Caithness and Orkney too. Now, the rest of the afternoon into the evening and overnight, and any last remaining showers fade away. Long spells of sunshine to end the day, and then dry overnight. And that takes us to Friday, which starts dry, but you'll notice another weather front arriving off the Atlantic. So cloud building in the west, rain through the Hebrides and in towards western parts of the mainland through the afternoon. The further east that you are, the driest it will be. And then to the weekend. This is Saturday. That weather front still with us, meaning fairly cloudy skies for eastern Scotland, some outbreaks of rain at times. And for the second half of the weekend, it's still with us, and it could just come back a little further west, bringing some rain across central and southwestern parts. But its exact position is still open to doubt. The forecast could well change. And that is the forecast for now. Sally.
Thank you very much. Now, a reminder of tonight's main news. President Trump says there will be very severe consequences if Iran restarts its nuclear program. It follows his decision yesterday to withdraw from the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. The move has left other countries trying to salvage what they can from the agreement. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from all of us here around the country, have a very good evening.